You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Thursday. You know what that means. It means it's Michigan Mailbag. It's happening. Gotta try to get all of your questions, millions of them here, in before, because I got to catch a flight. I'm going to Maryland. I'm going a day early. Anyway, Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Let's dig right in because we have so much to get to. Starting with our leaders and best, James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Does the lack of a downfield passing game concern you versus Ohio State? Who do you think wins in the trenches on both sides of the ball? The lack of the downfield passing game doesn't concern me because I think the way that Michigan's running its passing game is actually kind of perfect against Ohio State. So I think that intermediate short passing, I think certainly can pay dividends against Ohio State. They run a lot of crossing routes and stuff, and we'll get to that momentarily, but I think that's the big thing. As far as winning the trenches, Ohio State's offensive line has been great. I still think Michigan's defensive line is better. Same thing, I think, going the other, well, no, I think it's pretty much a draw on the other side. Michigan's offensive line, as we'll talk about a little bit later too, has struggled a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but nonetheless, I still think it's some net wins for Michigan in the trenches. And that's a good thing, obviously, but Ohio State certainly has a skill position player advantage in spades. So that could trump everything, but we'll see. Josh Barr at Jadicki. Have you heard any more about how UM is dealing with NIL to make a better pitch to recruits? Lots of reports from the Jamani Jackson visit to Bama. The NIL pitch blew away Michigan's. What's needed to step it up so we are on equal playing ground for recruiting? I know they are working on some stuff. I can't comment on it yet. But I know there's some things that are working. They might get started. I mean, I've been told, it was 2 Fridays ago, and then last Friday. We'll see if it happens tomorrow. I haven't asked my guy on it today, but there will be something that's launching that should make a giant change. They have some things in the works that will make big changes. Will it compare with Bama's? I don't know, but I know Michigan is diligently working on some stuff, but there are certain hurdles to clear, right? They can't just be like, well, here it is. There's certain things. It's not all, and it's not all like just the school. There's a bunch of different hurdles to clear. So, yeah. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21. How much is Hassan being undervalued by people outside the program? He's always getting extra yards and falling forward with running the ball. When he doesn't have the ball, he plays very physical and smart. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I feel like the national media has been similar with Michigan as the fans in a lot of ways of the wait and see type thing. Kind of like, wait and see how these guys do against Ohio State, and then we'll talk about if they're any good. The one game negates the rest, But yeah, Hassan Haskins has been good. Plus, he's sharing the spotlight with Blake Corum, who's been the flashier player. I think that's probably part of it too. But it is weird because if people have, like Hassan's almost got 1,000 yards, should get there this week. I'm gonna look here, and I don't have it up, but just out of curiosity, with some of the players that are doing really well across college football. Obviously, Kenneth Walker is the one that's up there. He's got 1473. But Hassan let's start by yards rather than yards per game. Lou Nichols, the Cass Tech player, leads the nation at Central Michigan. But Hassan Haskins, number 20, 985. So he's right there. He is almost there. And considering that you talk about Zach Charbonnet, who's at 864, he gets a lot of national attention. I guess there's not a lot of guys that are getting a ton of national attention per se below him. So yeah, disappointing thing for Blake Corum is that he's sitting down at 54 now that he's missed a couple games, but he would certainly be in there. But I think people are more focused on Walker, a little bit on Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Travion Henderson. That's really the only names you're really hearing. So, heard a little bit about Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. But otherwise, yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of smoke to that national campaign-wise. My writer for Wolverines Wire, Trent Noop. I say my because I own you, Trent. I'm just kidding. I do not. Will people still complain if Michigan beats Maryland and it's 10-1 entering Ohio State week? 100%. Especially if it doesn't look as... If Michigan doesn't beat Maryland like 62-0, something crazy, people will definitely be complaining. People are going to complain until Michigan beats Ohio State, and that's just how it's going to go from here on in. No changing that. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner1. Do you think Michigan Stadium will be full of Buckeyes like it has been the last couple of times we've played them at home? Yes, unfortunately, I do. Because I think a lot of Michigan people think it's going to be a loss and sell their tickets and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. Number 2, looking at our team now, what position groups are better/worse than you thought entering the season? Better is easily linebacker because I had them as the worst unit on the team, and they've been very impressive. Perfect? No. Impressive? Yes. The worse than I expected is wide receiver, and part of it is because Ronnie Bell, obviously, but no one's really stepped up and been like a go-to guy, right? I'd feel a lot better if it was like going into any game, it was like, Jehu Chesson and Mara Darbo. You knew one of them was going to have a big game every game pretty much, whereas now it's like guys will just disappear. Really isn't like a go-to guy. Ultimately, I guess you're spreading the wealth quite a bit, but I'd like to see someone emerge as being a dominant force. And when you consider Ronnie Bell really emerged on the scene for Michigan in his second year, you've got guys in their third year, second year that just haven't really matched that level of production. Maybe Roman Wilson would have become that if he didn't get injured. But I want to see more from A.J. Henning. I want to see more from Cornelius Johnson consistently. Sucks that Andrell got banged up right after having a big game. There's a lot of guys that I want to see do more. KRTF Farmark 84. Despite the running game continuing to do well, the offensive line seems to be struggling lately. Is that solely due to the fact that we're playing better defenses, or are there bigger and more concerning issues like player health, etc.? I think it's a mixture of a couple things. I think it's better defenses. I think that it's probably some teams trying to figure out how they can circumvent the line to some degree. They certainly haven't been as good. But I think that there's when you get a lot more on tape, of course, teams are going to figure out some different ways to work against you, right? I don't think it's necessarily like they're getting worse themselves. They're just I think that they're playing better teams that have a better beat on what they can do. And they're probably playing a little bit worse on their own to boot. All of those things kind of as a confluence. Brandon at Brandon S616, with the news of Mel Tucker's new contract extension being out there, if you were the AD of a middle-of-the-road team and had to hire Harbaugh or Tucker, who would you pick? I personally think the Tucker hype isn't warranted at this time. I'm with you. I think it's weird. And I get it for MSU to some degree. I mean, not to that, like $9.5 million a year. That seems insane to me. He's had one good year. In that year could very well end up being 9-4, right? So it's like, yeah, you beat Michigan twice. 2-5 last year. So good, so far so good this year, but at the same time they're 2-1 against teams with winning records. The next 2 games they have are against teams with winning records. They lose to Ohio State, if they lose to Penn State, they lose the bowl game. The shine wears off very fast, right? I mean, maybe it still feels good for Michigan State fans because, hey, beat Michigan, all of that. But, like, Harbaugh at least has the track record going to the Super Bowl, 3 straight NFC championships, took Stanford, who was back to being a bottom-of-the-barrel program, seemingly, took Stanford to a New Year's Six Bowl, or I guess it was a BCS game at that time. It's taken Michigan to 2 New Year's Six Bowls, kind of at least stabilize the program. I'd easily take Harbaugh. Easily. I understand he's lost twice to Tucker, but so far there isn't like a long-term track record that makes me say, yeah, that's the guy I would take. I'm always looking at kind of the long term. Didn't have a good year at Colorado. Didn't have a good first year at MSU. What he's done this year is impressive, but it could go downhill real fast. Just like it could go downhill for Michigan real fast. All right, finishing us out in segment 1, Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. What will it take for Aiden Hutchinson to be on the Heisman watch list? I would say leading the country in sacks, but I think he technically he's pretty close to that, right? He's tied for 7th with Ojabo. I think he'd have to single-handedly be the reason why Michigan beats Ohio State. I think that's probably it. Or at least have the biggest moment in that game, right? Ohio State on the goal line, about to score. Aiden Hutchinson knocks the ball out of C.J. Stroud's hands, picks it up, and rumbles for a touchdown somehow. You know what I mean? Takes points off the board, all that kind of stuff. It would have to be something of that nature where it's just like he completely takes over the game, I think. But, yeah. All right. So many more questions. Got to try to keep them all relatively short. But first, if quality and craftsmanship are important to you, then you should check out Made In. Made In is a cookware and kitchenware brand that works with renowned chefs and artisans to produce some of the world's best pots, pans, and wine glasses. Made In produces professional quality cookware for those who love to cook. They source the finest materials and partner with renowned craftsmen to make premium kitchen tools available directly to you without the markup. Made In products are made to last, and they offer a lifetime guarantee. Their cookware distributes heat evenly and can easily go from the stovetop to the oven. They have 40,000 5-star reviews, and their products are used by some of the world's best chefs at Michelin-starred restaurants around the world. Made In, better cookware for better meals. So right now, Made In is offering our listeners 15% off your first order with the promo code LOCKEDON. This is the best discount available anywhere online for Made In products, so go to madeincookware.com/lockedon. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off of your first order. That's madeincookware.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON. This episode of Locked On Wolverines is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has been always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect. It's a place where classmates can meet up for a study group knowing that they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or Lose is a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place where you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. With that in mind, I would like to implore the Ohio Turnpike to get some McDonald's in your plazas. Just a little note. I was craving it, and I couldn't get it on the Ohio Turnpike. Anyhow. So anyway, coming in after a Little League game, stopping at McDonald's after a big sporting event, connecting to Wi-Fi when you need to get work done, birthday parties, any of those things are really great reasons to stop over at Mickey D's. So head over to your local McDonald's, refuel, and reconnect. I'm loving it. All right, let's move it along. I'm going to try to get this next segment in under 17 minutes. It never happens, but it's going to. So we are under the Victor's Valiance. Normally Jim in the North would start us off, but we have a special guest for this one to start us off. It's Angelique at Angelique Shingelis. Well, it's at Shingelis, but you know her. She's the angel of the big house. Who is your favorite Star Wars character and why? Well, that one's easy for me. That's Ahsoka Tano, who, Angelique, I know that you just got introduced to Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, but she's long been my favorite from the Clone Wars. I've also read E.K. Johnston's book. I think it's by E.K. Johnston. Maybe it's not. I don't remember. I read the book. Anyway, Ahsoka as well. I don't know. I love that she's got a similar attitude as Anakin, and that's like they have that clashing style, but like mentorship and all of that kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of me and my mom in a way. Both very headstrong and things of that nature. But she's just a badass. And watching her grow and throughout it, I can't really put up like one particular reason why. I do love the dual lightsabers and her fighting style. I like how smart she is, that she bucked the Jedi Order when she realized what was going on there. She's arguably the most powerful Force wielder on the good side outside of the Skywalkers. And she's just awesome. And loved her in, like I said, I loved her in Rebels. I loved her in Clone Wars. Just like watching her story arc, watching her grow up, all that stuff. So if you like Star Wars, which Angelique, I know you do, I've been imploring you to watch Clone Wars, and you should. Anyway, Jim at Jim in the North, has line play been declining? I know we kind of answered this. I listened to the game on the radio and heard a few mentions of line making mistakes, whereas versus Washington, they seem to dominate. What is your grade for Sharon Moore? My grade for him is still a solid A. I do think it is slightly declining, but again, I think that's a lot of it has to do with what the defenses are doing and the fact that there's been a little bit of, there have been the injuries, which have meant guys going in and out. Although I think that it's kind of weird it hasn't played as well with Zinter and Keegan back in the lineup full time. Like they were dominating and then injuries and stuff like that, and it seemed like Filiaga and Carson Barnhart and who else I'm missing? I can't remember. Like they filled in great. And then once the other guys came back, maybe they're a little tentative. I'm not really sure. Continuing, is Speed and Space dead? It seems like we have gone more hammers and phone booths. Not that I'm complaining. I love Smash Mouth. It's just nice to have options. As Josh Gaddis said on Wednesday, it's a lot of people talk about Speed and Space, and it's not that Speed and Space is it's not the air raid, right? Like he said, it's technically they're getting it a lot with the run game, or you just getting the ball out to, it's essentially get a guy one-on-one where they can make a move, and you're seeing it a lot more in the run game than anywhere else, but you're seeing it otherwise. It's just a lot of people, myself included, kind of thought that it was going to be more of an air raid type offense, and it's not. It just means getting guys in situations where they can essentially make a move with the ball in their hands. You see it. It happens. They did, but I also don't think they're scheming guys open the way that they were in 2019 early either. So anyway, Mark Z at Mark Zimke. One of the most interesting facts or stats for Michigan is they have 18 different players with a catch or run of 20 yards or longer. Ohio State has 13. Michigan State has 10. This is what makes me want to believe Michigan is way more explosive than anyone gives it credit for. How do you interpret this? I interpret it that you don't know who is going to beat you at any given point in time for Michigan, right? Because you've got so many different guys, and I didn't know that 18 number. That's a pretty big number there. They just have a lot of different guys that can kill you at any given point. So when we're talking about people who, I guess, man, they have had a lot. Because I'm just looking at rushing. All of the above here, I believe, have had at least that. Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, AJ Henning, Roman Wilson, Tavier Dunlap. Wilson, I'm not, does Wilson, well, he's averaging 19 yards a carry, so he's had 3. So he must be. Tavier Dunlap almost scored a touchdown at that one point, JJ McCarthy. So that's just those guys and running the ball. So the other 11 would come through, and I guess some of them you'd have to exclude. I mean, Cornelius, Eric All, Mike Sainristil, Dalen Baldwin. We already knew about Roman Wilson. Andrell Anthony, Luke Schoonmaker is, I think, had that. Ronnie Bell certainly had that early. And I don't know who, I guess that would be it. That doesn't seem like that's 18, but still, as far as players having that, maybe Cade has had that as well. I don't know. That might be kind of, because it says he's got 10 for 24, 24 for 4, but maybe he had a long run somewhere in there that I don't really know about. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just that they've got a lot of depth, a lot of different ways to kill you, but they don't necessarily have like one or two guys that are just killing it in that sense. So that's the way I look at it. Let's see. Zach at Zach Woodruff 3. Do you foresee a healthy dose of Edwards and McCarthy to keep the starters fresh? I also don't expect Eric All or Blake Corum. I don't expect Blake Corum. I wouldn't be surprised if Eric All, right? Unless they just feel like, hey, did he retweak it, or was it just pain that he experienced during that was not going to go away? You'd hope that you see more Edwards. JJ McCarthy, I expect we'll see him more because the game is going to be different, but I don't know. I don't think that they're necessarily going to try to keep the starters fresh per se. I think to some degree you want to, but I think it's one of those things like, all right, let's just try to kill them quick and then get our backups in. That's probably what they want to try to do. I don't know if they'll accomplish that or not, but I think that would probably be the goal. Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. Overall fan base reaction to a 10-2 season with losses to rivals, assuming a somewhat competitive game with Ohio State. I mean, I think they'd unfortunately be annoyed and sad, because it's like those two losses are the two you probably want most. I don't know what the fan base's reaction is. To me, my reaction is job super well done, right? Because, I mean, I thought they were going to go 8-4, and I mean, I've said a bunch of times 9-3 was certainly a possibility, but I thought Wisconsin was an auto loss. I thought that they would lose to, I don't think I picked them to lose to Michigan State. Well, Ohio State, I did. I was back and forth on Penn State and Washington. And then in my final predictions, I predict them to lose to Maryland, but that was because I thought Maryland, and this is before the season, I thought Maryland was going to look like it did the first couple games of the year all year. And it doesn't. If it had a defense, it would be a different story, but they don't. So I think it'd be pretty good, personally. I'm Patman at the _GD_Patman. Do you think David Ojabo stays one more year, or is he off to the league with Hutch after this season? I think it just depends on what grade he gets, because I know you're starting to see like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay be like first round, type thing with him. If he gets that as a grade, then yeah, I think he's gone, and I think he should be, right? Capitalize on it. Don't take the chance that you don't do as well without Aiden Hutchinson next to you. Just go. But if he's getting something that's like third or less or whatever, or if they just feel like, hey, you need a little bit more development, there's still some things we want to see, then he could. But it's anybody's guess, right? Because he could do just like I said about Aiden. What if he goes out and just like gets like 5 sacks in the next couple games? What if he finished the season with like, if he gets 2 sacks a game? Let's do a hypothetical. Let's say that Michigan does win the Big Ten. Michigan goes to the Big Ten championship and then goes and loses in the college football playoff. Just I don't want to give you 15 games. I'll give you 14. Like, actually, you know what? Let's take that back. Let's just say 13 games. What if he just has in the next 3 games 2 sacks each of the next games? He finishes with 16 sacks, which is just an incredible number. I mean, it just makes it hard to think that he'd stay at that point. Chase Glasser via Instagram. What does 10-2 with 2 losses being to your rivals mean for Michigan? I know we kind of just said that. All the staff changes, great culture shifts, and scheme improvements for another third-place finish in the division with losses to rivals. Can't be too mad about 10 wins, but I mean, it's considering Michigan went 2-4 last year. What would you rather be? Would you rather be in Penn State's shoes right now, 6-4? Unrivaled, but losses to Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, and Iowa. But wins over Auburn and Wisconsin. Which would you rather have? Because that's the thing. The grass is not always greener, right? It's, to me, giant success considering what last year was. The program's at least back on solid footing. You can build off of that. Hopefully. The problem is that Michigan hasn't tended to build off of it. But it should, right? It needs to find a way to have this 10-win season and then reach the next step the next year rather than either the same like it was in 2016. I mean, they did build off of it. They just finished with a similar record. Or, you don't want to see where it's like 2019, it was like, oh, this Michigan team is going to build off the 10-win season last year and then goes 9-4. So Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel. Are you surprised at all about the basketball team's early offensive struggles? Let's first of 2 questions. No, I'm not. I mean, because you lose some of the guys that you lost this last year. You lose Franz, he was one of those guys that was your go-to when you needed something. You lose Mike Smith, and you lose Isaiah Livers, who certainly was a big 3-point presence on top of it. And I mean, that's a lot of production that you lost. And you're asking a lot of other guys to step in and do that. But no, I'm not surprised. It's early season. It's one of those things that it's like, you don't pull the ripcord. It sucks, but it is what it is. Yeah, anyway. Do you think the Cade fits the gamer description, plays better in big games, makes the plays he needs to, and is okay against lesser competition? I think that nails exactly what Cade is, right? It's the same reason why Cade, when downed, was it 21-7 against Rutgers? He comes in and just starts slinging it. Like I definitely think that's a perfect description of Cade. I'm kind of jealous that I didn't think of it first. Rob Anso at Rob Anso 1. Why is Cade more comfortable in a hostile environment? At Wisconsin, Nebraska, MSU, and Penn State, he seemed very calm and collected. I wouldn't say he's more comfortable, but I mean, he's the same, right? He's even keeled. I don't think he's less comfortable when he's playing at home, but he certainly doesn't seem to. I mean, like they say a million times, don't flinch. If you talk about don't flinch, Cade is the one that is probably the one that doesn't flinch more than anybody, save for the interception against MSU when he was the one time he was kind of forcing something, but there's been no panic, right? That makes you feel good because we haven't seen that. I mean, and it's not just Cade, it's everybody, but we haven't really seen that as much from some of these Michigan teams. So good on him. Zach Van Lenti at Lenti Zach with 2. With a strong emphasis on Ohio State this year, do you think the coaching staff has been saving some wrinkles or special plays for Ohio State? I always think so, and it almost never happens. I mean, at least you hope that there's some scripted stuff early. Like, think back to the 2019 game last time they played. That Giles Jackson run felt very scripted. I don't know that there's going to be anything crazy. Like, I just think that maybe there'll be it'll be more like things that we've already seen. There will be twists on them, right? Counters to what we've already seen. But I'm tired of every year. It seems like every year I'm like, they've got something saved up. I just know it. And sometimes they have and they haven't used it. But, yeah. Continuing, looking ahead because fans can. Do you like the fact that Ohio State has a legitimate opponent the week before the game? I know Ohio State will never overlook Michigan, but they will have to focus on MSU this week. Yes and no, because obviously I'd like the fact that they have to focus on MSU. I don't want them to lose to MSU because I think a pissed off Ohio State going into the Michigan game is the worst possible thing, So I like the fact that they can't do like they did against Maryland in 2018 and not focus at all on Maryland and prepare all week literally for Michigan. I like that they can't do that. So that's good, but also you hope that they win. I know that's a weird, icky place to be, but you hope that they win so that Michigan doesn't have to feel the wrath. You want them to win big too, right? Because if they win big, maybe they go on with a little overconfidence. I know that's not normally how they operate, but we've seen it. 2017, I think they went into that game feeling pretty overconfident, and Michigan, who I thought was going to get destroyed, didn't. Weirdly, 2017, Michigan should have been destroyed, wasn't. 2018, Michigan should have won and got destroyed. That's how it goes sometimes. Willie Mendoza at Willie Will 9. Ohio State's offense might be the most potent it's ever been. What is different about this year's defense than the prior regime that should give us reason to believe that they can keep this within reach? Well, the pass defense isn't very good, number one. Let me pull up some numbers here. See if do I have time? I think I'm going to be cutting it close before the camera turns off here. The pass defense, the run defense is shored up, right? That's the good news. The pass defense hasn't been great, per se. So everyone talked about the rushing yards that Oregon got, but I mean, a lot of those were actually short passes. Oregon got almost 500 rushing yards against Ohio State. Passing yards, sorry. 484 passing yards. They gave up 432 passing yards to Maryland. They gave up 405 passing yards to Nebraska. They gave up 361 even in a blowout win to Purdue. They gave up almost 300 yards to Minnesota through the air. They gave up 385 passing yards to Akron. The only team that they have done pretty good against has been Tulsa. The only teams that they have allowed less than 300 yards passing to are Minnesota by 6 yards and Tulsa. Otherwise, every other team is getting 300 and something yards. Indiana got 352 against them, and they didn't even have Michael Penix. Rushing yards, they've become one of the better rush defenses in the country. Somehow, I don't see how. Like, what I'm looking at doesn't make sense, but because I know that they're 14th in the country. Oregon got 128. Maryland got 166, Penn State got 161, Nebraska 90. Otherwise, I mean, they've given up 200 something rushing yards a game. So that should tell you what they can do. How are they I don't even know. Rush defense, Ohio State 14th. This can't be right. This says 105. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. They are misslotted. That has to be okay. This is giving me different numbers than what the total offense log. I don't know what I was looking at because I'm looking at the total offense log here. Oh, that's what Ohio State got. Oh. Okay, so I had that backwards. I had that really wrong. Pass yards, all right, still really good. Man, I was looking at Ohio State's offense. I'm like, that's really impressive. It's because it's Ohio State's numbers. Defensively, all right, let's settle back in here. So they gave up 205, 203. Let's see, passing yards. All right, so no, they haven't topped all those numbers. I was like, man, everyone's getting it on them. You'd think I would have caught on much earlier. I'm an idiot. I'm a moron, as Chris Childress likes to say. But passing defense-wise, I mean, still, Purdue got 386 in a loss. Penn State got 361 in a loss. Tulsa got 428. So teams are getting something. Indiana only got 80. That makes way more sense. I was like, how did they get that much? I watched that game. I didn't remember it going that way. Rushing yards, it looked bad early, 203 and 269, but since they've only given up 100 yards twice. But you have to figure when you look at like all the teams they've played, who's been good at running the ball? None of them. Except for, see, Nebraska's okay. They got 113. Rutgers is okay. They got 111. You really think Tulsa, Akron, Maryland, Indiana, Penn State, or Purdue are necessarily power running teams? No. So that should hopefully give you a little bit of hope. All right, not finishing us out. We got two more. Jacob Chaveria at Jacob17213950. What are your thoughts on Michigan making the playoffs if MSU beats OSU and we win out but do not make the Big Ten championship? I guess that's the other thing. If Ohio State does lose, then you're just rooting for Michigan State to at least beat Penn State and go to the Big Ten champion. Well, I guess it wouldn't even matter. If Michigan State loses, Michigan State beats Ohio State and goes to the Big Ten championship, then Michigan certainly has its shot. But Michigan would have to obviously beat Ohio State. Wouldn't you like to see Michigan throw the ball like crazy this Saturday, considering it's most likely going to be a shootout versus OSU? Yeah, I've been saying that I think that this is kind of like a dress rehearsal on both sides of the ball, because seeing man coverage on that side and the other side, it being a prolific passing offense, I think it's a perfect dress rehearsal for Michigan in that light. So we'll see if that works. Hopefully it will. To kind of get things kind of in order. All right, I missed this one last week on Instagram, Jay Weissman DPT. I think I missed it. If I might be just answering it again. These weeks are blurs, man. If MSU and Michigan both went out, do you think the College Football Playoff Committee puts them both in? We have seen several years with two SEC teams. You can make the argument the Big Ten is as good as the SEC this year, and 2 11-1 teams should make the CFP. I think it's certainly possible. I mean, I think that I like Cincinnati and everything, but like Cincinnati, okay, you beat Notre Dame. If Michigan and Michigan State beat Ohio State and Penn State, I mean, I know Penn State's not ranked, but like if they beat Ohio State and some of the other teams Michigan's beat, Wisconsin's obviously ranked. I don't know that anyone else will necessarily finish out there, but I think Penn State's a quality win. I mean, like it's the level of competition is higher, and then Michigan has just as good of a right to be there as anyway, because the only loss they had was by 4 points on the road to MSU. So, and yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility. All right, let's continue and then finish this out. We've got a bunch more left still. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface is for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so many questions left. Wow, so many questions left. All right. Two of the same here with Kate Alyssa at Feel the Burn Girl or JBOSWHIWWOH -JI. Okay. At Jimbo Pete 6. So they ask, what's the latest on Blake Corum? Will he be healthy by November 27th? Will Corum be back for the OSU game? I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, he's kind of hinting on social media that he will be. Jim Harbaugh said before the Penn State game or maybe after, he's like, it looks like it's like a 2-game injury type thing. So that would mean Penn State and Maryland, all kind of signs point to that. So we'll see. I would imagine he's not going to make the trip to Maryland, which would be a shame since he's a Maryland kid. This would really be one, maybe it might be the only time that he would ever get to go to College Park and actually play, depending on how his career goes. So that would be, because if let's say he has an awesome year next year in Bolts, it'd be really disappointing he never got to play against the hometown team at or maybe at, depending on how things go next year, like Maryland coming to the Big House. What if he's injured then, never gets to play against the hometown team? That would suck. Anyway, I think so is my short of it. Charles L at Charlie L 55. Is there a backstory between Harbaugh and Molly Mcgrath? Washington, Mcgrath runs past Harbaugh to interview Corum and Haskins. Nebraska, Harbaugh avoids her like the plague. PSU, talk to this guy. No, I think with Penn State, it was more like, I mean, Eric All was just walking by. I don't think there's anything. I think Harbaugh just doesn't like doing the post-game interviews, period. I never see him do post-game interviews with anybody, right? But I'm not watching TV. So I never see him on the field getting interviewed. He usually just runs right off. So I think it's more that. Molly Mcgrath, by the way, is an absolute sweetheart. I adore her. She is just one of the nicest people you could ever meet. So if he does have something against her, I'd have something against him because she's just couldn't be any kinder of a person. Rich Nelson at Rich Nelson 1. While I am trying not to look ahead, I can't help it. I note that we barely have run any trick plays or fakes all year. Do you think we have a lot up our sleeves for the Ohio State game that we haven't shown yet? Again, I don't know, but it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, with some teams, when they do that type of stuff, it's like they don't think that they can beat you straight up. Like when Penn State ran a fake punt and a fake field goal early, I was like, they don't think they can beat Michigan straight up. And that's the thing with like teams like Michigan State run that stuff all the time. And it's because like you don't need to run that if you can just line up and play. So maybe I would hope that there'd be something saved up. I just don't know what it is. And when I talk to people, they're like, oh, nothing saved up. But I mean, I was going to MSU, like nothing saved up. Might be different against Ohio State. I think with Ohio State, it's just more that they've probably been practicing more of what that look is that they present on both sides of the ball. So, Nate Eaton, flag of United States at N Eaton 5. Perception of the Michigan football program to recruits in the 2023 class. Current class is lagging behind the on-field results. I mean, not sure because I haven't been covering recruiting for a while here, so couldn't really tell you. And I don't want to sit there and make something up and pretend like I know something that I don't. Jason of NSIE at JMarlow81. If Michigan wins out and Michigan State beats Ohio State but loses to Penn State, does that mean, okay, let me reread this quick because I'm just like reading it and not like listening to it. Michigan wins out and Michigan State beats Ohio State but loses to Penn State. Does that mean State goes to Indy or would Michigan go to Indy? Michigan would go to Indy in that case because they would have one loss in conference. And they would have the head-to-head over Ohio State, who would also have one loss. Wait, no, Ohio State would. Let's see. No, Ohio State would have two. Okay, so yeah. Michigan wins out, Ohio State. Okay, yeah. Also, is there a scenario where MSU wins out but gets overlooked for the playoffs? I remember happening to Penn State a few years back. No, not if they went out. The reason why it happened to Penn State is because Penn State had two losses. One, they lost to Pitt and they lost 49-10 to Michigan. So there were other teams that, Ohio State made it in with one loss to Penn State. Michigan would have made it in. Michigan had 2 losses. Michigan certainly also probably would have been ahead of Penn State in the pecking order if it wouldn't have lost to Iowa. But then again, if it hadn't lost to Iowa, there's a good chance they would have made it into. They wouldn't have made it into the Big Ten championship, but I digress. Michigan Nate at Michigan Nate. How will the Michigan State versus Ohio State game change your outlook on the Michigan versus Ohio State game? The only way that it could change my outlook is nothing's going to change my overall outlook. The only way that it'll change my outlook is if Kenneth Walker can go in and have a big game, because Ohio State's rush defense is not been letting anyone through lately. If they can figure out if they can, run the ball against Ohio State and throw the ball against Ohio State, I'll feel pretty good about Michigan's chances of being able to run. So, let's see. How does your outlook on the Michigan versus Ohio State game factor in other common opponents like Penn State? It doesn't. It just kind of doesn't. I look at the overall body of work, but it's going to be different. Like, this is really the truly throw the stats out the window type of thing for Ohio State. And even when Michigan's not been good at some things, it seems like sometimes they're better against Ohio State in some regards, and sometimes they're not, but like the defense is what I'm worried about, because that's what has been the issue the last couple of years. Whereas, like, I wasn't worried about the offense in 2016, and then obviously it was an issue. But all right, continuing, he says, seems like OSU has looked very beatable in games against teams with a pulse, not named Purdue. They have, but I don't necessarily expect them to look like that against Michigan, but we'll see. Could change. It's my best friend has been saying, Michigan's not going to go winless against Ohio State for eternity. One of these years, they'll rise up and get them even when Ohio State is good. Could be this year. I don't know. Jody Getchie, at Jody_Getchie. Why are we ranked below Cincy? Well, because Cincy is undefeated, has a win over a top 10 Notre Dame team. It's pretty much that simple. If Michigan was undefeated, they'd be ranked ahead of Cincinnati. The Michigan Floridian at Daytona Digital. How bad will Ohio State obliterate Mel Tucker on the heels of his absurd contract extension? Given that Ohio State has the best pass offense in the Big Ten and Michigan State has the worst pass defense in the country, I think it's probably going to be pretty bad. But if Kenneth Walker can run the ball, if they can just match up with them like every time, score for score, slow the game down a little bit, they've got a shot, but I don't see it personally. VR Connections at VR_Connections. What do you need to see versus Maryland that gives you enough confidence to not sell your tickets to OSU fans? Let me say this. If you're a Michigan fan, don't sell your tickets to OSU fans regardless. Show up for your team. Don't let the horseshoe, make it the horseshoe north. It's embarrassing. Just a win. If Michigan beats Maryland, then that's all you need to see. So just that's it. Motorcade at Bear Mead 1010. Does Jim get a contract extension after this year, or is he okay with making minimum and paying good money for his staff? He's not making minimum. He still can make the same amount of money he was making. It's just all incentives. Like, people like to say, oh, he's making $4 million, but he can reach like 8 something if he hits all of his incentives. So I think he's fine. He's more fine just doing what he's doing. Furkinator at Furkinator1. November. What do we need to finish strong? Also, can you start telling the golf crowd to stay home next week? Yeah, golf crowd, stay home next week. To finish strong, obviously they have to play a perfect game against Ohio State. Beat Maryland. I don't care how you do it. You can win by 1 point. Doesn't really matter. And get out of the game injury free. And then against Ohio State, don't make mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. And execute. Don't drop the ball 8 straight plays like we saw in the 2019 game from the receivers. It's stuff like that. Paul H. Lourn, at Paul H. Lourn. I see list of remaining uncommitted 5 stars. Why aren't we on the list for at least one? Michigan is. Josh Connerly. and technically Damani Jackson. So it's, I don't know what you're saying there. Finishing us out, _tighten up _ tighten up _ is the conservative play calling and lack of routes to create separation just Gaddis keeping plays close to his vest, or is this the reality of the scheme? 3 yards in a cloud of dust with timid pass plays. Well, I wouldn't call it 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Again, I want to remind you, Michigan has the number 14 rushing offense in the country. They are averaging 5.14 yards per carry. It's what they're doing has been working. It's no different than what we saw in 2018 when people kind of liked this style of play. But yeah, they pass downfield more. But I think the scheme is the scheme, and I think it's driven off of the personnel they have. They don't have that, like, those high-flying receivers right now. They don't have some of those things that you want to run the more explosive look. So they're sticking with the personnel. It's the scheme as it is right now, and it will change. You know, if they feel like they're going to be better passing the ball, they'll do that. You know what I mean? All right. That's going to do it for us today. This is super long, as usual. But anyway, be back on Friday. I'll be live I'll be in Arlington, Virginia, not Washington, D.C. or Maryland, but I'll be in Arlington, Virginia. We'll be doing the preview with Jake Butt. So look forward to that. All right, we'll talk to you then. Thank you for watching and or listening. Peace.